This is Julie Mullins with Stereophile here at AXPONA, and right now we are in the T+A electroacoustic room, a company based out of Herford, Germany, and we're going to talk with Jim Shannon about the Symphonia streaming integrated amp that is a truly full-service, all-in-one, and a very compact chassis. So,
Yeah.
And it includes a tuner in addition to what features one might expect. But yeah, if you want to give us a brief rundown of the features, we'll
Sure.
get into a little more specifics.
So what we've learned in the last few years is a whole lot of customers are interested in the highest possible quality, but are really realizing, and correctly so, that one does not always need to have a huge number of boxes, each with dedicated separate functions, a huge number of cables to get a very high performance, simple to use system in their home. And what we've been developing over the past few years is more products that actually address that by simplifying, integrating both control and functionality, but also in simple boxes. This is our most recent iteration, called this Symphonia. And what we have is basically an integrated amplifier, what used to be really called a receiver, because today's functions have expanded so much more than the initial receivers of our youth, which would typically mean an FM tuner or FM AM tuner and an integrated amp. Now what we have is FM tuner, FM DAB for many of the parts of the world where that works, FM HD for here in the US, as well as a very high quality streaming integration that allows us to take all of the most important streaming applications, Qobuz, Deezer, it allows a Tidal, it allows you to use Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect, Apple AirPlay, and it allows us to control all of these things in an integrated fashion with a very good high quality integrated amplifier, and all app controllable or remote controllable traditional remote, so that it's, for many people, a complete solution. Just add speakers and a network and you're off to the races.
Yeah, and tell me about the Roon functionality. Is it available as an endpoint, completely Roon ready, or?
It is in the final stages of Roon ready certification. We've almost
takes time.
almost all of our products that do streaming have been Roon certified and are an endpoint. This, I'm certain, will be very soon. I saw the latest correspondence from our engineers and the Roon engineers, and I know they're in that late stages, but I've learned not to promise exactly what date that might happen. But Roon control, as we all have learned, is one of the most amazing and comfortable ways to really navigate large musical libraries, and especially with the integration of the streaming services and the capacity to use your own UPnP NAS device and control that. It's really a very specialized way to simplify this kind of product.
And make it all very seamless to access any of your music. And that leads us to the other features inside. There's an MC and MM phono preamp built in, standard. You've got headphone jack, USB, of course, Ethernet for network, as you mentioned, and many other. Oh, and the HDMI ARC, of course, for home theater, and that integration both directions. So that's
again, so many people today want their flat screen TV to be able to use their stereo system as a control center and a musical delivery system. So with the ARC, we can do that in a very simplified way.
Yes, and then subwoofer output, preamp bypass, the usual things one would expect. The latest Bluetooth, if one wants to go that route. Maybe you have friends over, but
people have friends over, and that's the only time most people ever use it, but it works.
Latest aptX HD.
That's right.
So and firmware upgradable.
Absolutely.
Very easily. Is that available in the field, or?
We've been doing that now for the last 5+ years, where once you're on the network, you have a good home network that will allow you to access all of these streaming services. we can easily check and see if it needs an upgrade for any new features or any kind of reliability improvements that we can make in the field. And this will automatically update for you in a relatively short period. And it's something all of our customers have come to appreciate. They don't even have to go back to the dealer. They can just make sure they have the latest firmware at any time.
Yeah, fantastic. And amplification-wise, it has quite a good bit of power, more than one might expect, and Class D amplification of high quality inside that I believe you mentioned was partially customized, the output section?
Yes, we have worked closely in a couple of years now with our friends at in Denmark, who've created a very, very good output stage that's very stable compared to what early Class D output stages were. And we've combined this with what we've learned in our own HV series technology, which means high voltage power supply rails that allow our input stages, our gain stages to be far more linear, low distortion than any of our prior more modest voltage power supply rail designs. And this gives us all the advantages of the sonic performance that the input stage combines with the absolute stability and current delivery of an output stage that doesn't vary with speaker impedance matching and the other problems that early Class D amplifiers clearly had. So we're very happy with the way we've been able to take all of what we've learned with the very best Class D output technology, and it's a very stable, very good power, 150 watts into 8 ohm, 250 watts into 4 ohms, which for most people in the real world is more than sufficient to drive even quite challenging loudspeakers.
Yeah, and we talked about the Gen 3, the streaming capabilities as well. That's all proprietary, customized, and quite unique in this category, especially for handling both PCM and DSD.
Correct.
Up to where they max out, I think you said up to DSD 512 and up to PCM 32768, and having those handled each in their own way. So the signals get separated into
each digital format is handled in a fully optimized signal path for that format. So we developed our own true 1-bit DSD decoding architecture, which this includes. So any DSD is automatically routed to that architecture for best performance. We've been for many years developing a very, very sophisticated PCM architecture that will allow extremely high resolution, very linear, up to 768, 32-bit resolution, which again is beyond most commercially available material, but that, as some people make the comparison with automobiles, if you have 500 horsepower, you don't have to use it all the time, but it makes it much smoother and easier when you're using it within its much more reasonable commercially available ranges. And that's exactly how this works with all the digital signals.
Yeah, and also having traditional audiophiles, maybe a number of them are downsizing, simplifying, and perhaps they have, or most likely, if they're into digital, of course, have a NAS drive that has high-res tracks that are likely in that range of resolutions. So to have that available in such a unit is unique, I think.
Absolutely, and as is true for all digital products, the resolution limits will often be determined by where it's coming from and how it's being delivered. Windows machines have a driver requirement. Macintosh doesn't, but it has lower resolution for DSD compared to Windows. So these are all factors that will affect what you can actually deliver. But at the same time, we're always going to be at or beyond what's commercially available. And we have a product that we think for most people will deliver what's considered extremely high performance, high end, in, as you said, a very compact package.
Yeah, and quite elegant, and having the heat sinks and everything, just meters right there. So yeah, well, thank you, Jim.
You're very welcome. We appreciate Stereophile taking the time to pay attention to what we're doing. We think you guys do something very important for our industry to help broadcast the things that high-end music lovers want and need, and we appreciate being a part of that.